she's nobody's kid sister anymore.
You know something, Marie? There's been a lot of talk about you growing up. But what about me?
And he's nobody's fool. But who are they?
I wish we had another mystery to solve.
They're Donnie and Marie.
You got me.
Marie Osmond reveals her acting talents in her first dramatic role, The Gift of Love, for the whole family at Christmas.
Mary? I got away. Come and skate with me. And have them two find out I know how. Not on your life. Come on. It's more fun skating than talking to two show-offs like that.
How do you think I can teach you?
Mary, let's go.
Aren't you going to introduce us to your friend?
Look how I'm forgetting my manners. My mother'd be that ashamed. Meet Franz Holner and Rudy
Miller.
Miller. This is my friend, Beth Atherton.
Are you also an upstairs maid?
Oh, no,
No,
Beth's
I'm
the
the-
parlor maid.
Well, with your beauty, you should be mistress of the house.
Thank you. I'd really like to skate.
That is precisely what you shall do. Franz will take Mary, I will help you, and in no time, you will be gliding over the ice as though it were your second home.
That's very kind of you. But
Oh, that sounds like just the ticket.
So first we put our right foot forward. So, glide.
Hello and welcome to Book versus Movie. This is a podcast where we read books that have been adapted into movies and then we try to decide which we like better, the book or the movie. I am Margot P. of ColoniaBook.com and this is my good friend and co-host, Margot D. of Brooklyn Fit Chick.
Hi, everyone.
So we are wrapping up our holiday month of holiday movies. If you're new, maybe you found us because you're a huge Osmonds fan. We're going to be getting into the Osmond of it all, but in case you're new, you're looking at our catalog, just last couple episodes, you might be wondering, what's up with this? Here's the deal. We try to crank out a brand new episode every single week, and that means over the almost 10 years we've been doing this show now, we've had to expand what we mean by book. So when we say book versus movie, we mean literary sources of any kind. So it could be a book, it could be a novella, it could be a short story like we're talking about today, it could be a magazine article or a song. As long as it has a literary source and as long as it is a source and a movie that we can get our hands on and that you can get your hands on easily without having to spend a lot of money on eBay, we will consider it. So with that said, we're about to go into 2024. Can you believe this?
No, we met 10 years ago.
How is that possible?
I don't know.
Wow. Time is very bendy and strange, but we have a lot of great plans for 2024. We're very excited about, but we still need a lot of ideas. So if you have ideas for books and movies that you think we should cover, if you're wondering about whether we've covered your favorite book and or movie, you can find that out. You can meet other listeners of this podcast and interact with us on the internet in a couple of places.
Yes, the best place to go is Facebook. Do like the Facebook page, but if you join our Facebook group, and it is a private group, and we do just talk about movies and books there and old-timey movie history and things like that. We have two posts that Thaddeus was very kind to put up there for us at the very top. One is a list of the shows that we've done, and one is a list of shows that people have recommended for us. Or you could just post in there. You don't have to look for the list, but we are always looking for ideas. We're on social media at Book versus and Movie. There, it's Book versus a Movie. I know it gets a little confusing. We did this 10 years ago. We had no idea we'd be here 10 years now. And we also have an old-timey email. Book versus movie podcast at gmail.com. If you would like some stickers or you want to send suggestions there, do so. Both of us have a stack of stickers we'd love to send to you. So Instagram, Threads, Book versus a Movie. And if you're looking for this podcast in your podcast app, it's Book vs Movie Podcast. So be sure to subscribe, and that way you'll never miss an episode.
And if you really enjoy the show and would like to help support us, keep us in books and movies, you can also do that on Patreon.
Yes, Patreon. We've been doing the show now. It's going to be in our 10th year. We decided when we had to start a Patreon page to help pay for just really the cost of the books and the movies and the streaming services and things like that. So we put 2 years worth of shows in the regular feed, and then everything before that goes on the Patreon wall. We have on there Silence of the Lambs, The Warriors, Steel Magnolias, so many different books and movies. And like Margot said, we're always looking for, we think we don't have any ideas, and then y'all come through for us, or one of us just gets inspired by something. Like this TV movie just popped in my head a couple of weeks ago, and it turns out it's available. So thank you. Oh, I want to say thank you to Shumi for joining the Patreon page. We really appreciate you doing that.
Thank you, and welcome, Shumi. And and we also have a newsletter on Substack. It's free in case you can't get enough of our our discussion about whatever movie we're talking about this week. We put a little extra bonus material into a newsletter, and that is at Book versus Movie, all spelled out, bookversusmovie.substack.com. Again, it's free.
Yes, we have a promotion. We're part of the Frolic Podcast Network and Bethany House, which publishes Christian rom-coms and Christian romance novels. This one is called All's Fair in Love and Christmas by Sarah Monson. And here's the plot. Graphic designer Mackenzie Graham looks forward to two things every December: Christmas celebrations and the annual promotion handed out to one employee at the end of the year. In fact, at her office, the employee demonstrating the most Christmas spirit is likely to win the job. But crippled by social anxiety, Mackenzie never thought she'd be a contender in the holiday competition. So how exactly has she found herself dueling her workplace crush with wrapping paper tubes and tinsels and her weapons of choice for a much-needed raise? His name is Jeremy, and by the way, he is the guardian of his late sister's children. They're kind of crushing on each other. So that is the story. It's available everywhere. Follow at Sarah Monson writes, and this book is adorable, and it's available everywhere, including Audible, if you're looking for a Christmas romance for your reading. And thank you so much to Bethany House and Frolic Podcast Network for supporting us.
I love reading Christmassy stories at Christmas time.
Right.
It's so much fun. Now, speaking of which, this is a super short story. And most of us, if you're those of you who grew up in the United States, you probably had to read it right about this time of year, right before you went on holiday break. This was a good short story with a lot of themes and symbolism.
Irony.
Irony, paradox. Teachers love to teach this story, and I think it's one of those stories. You get round about the end, like I say, the end of the semester. Holiday break is looming. Kids don't want to concentrate too hard. It's hard to get them to settle down. And this story is because of its length, it really moves along. It's one of those stories that teachers love to have the kids read out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Where you now Jimmy will read this paragraph and now Susie will read that paragraph. It's one of those. So we've all are very familiar in the United States with the gift of the Magi. I was unaware of quite the colorful history that our author has this week. His real name is William Sidney Porter.
He was born September 11th, 1862, Greensboro, North Carolina. He has also spent some time in Texas. They both have libraries, museums, for him there. He died in New York City, June 5th, 1910. He was a short story writer. He'd had a very interesting past. His mother had died when he was young of consumption, tuberculosis. Wasn't actually even though his father was pretty well off, he wasn't as educated as you might think, or he wasn't schooled as much as you might think. But he always loved words, and he loved trivia. He memorized the dictionary. One of his parlor games is he would hand you a dictionary, and you could just pick a word, and he would know what it is and how to pronounce it. He lived in Texas for a while. He fell in love. He clerked at a drugstore. He also was a teller at a bank and the manager of a bank, and he may or may not have made off with some of the money and embezzled some of it. He took off for Honduras, I believe, to get away from the charges.
Wait. Before that, he's working in this bank. He falls in love with this girl. She also has tuberculosis.
Right.
Like his mother had. They fall in love. her family is dead set against it because she's sick. And who is this kid anyway? But they get married. They have, I think they have one child who passes away, and then they have a second child, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then he's working in this bank, as Margot says, and he gets found guilty of embezzlement. And he runs away, leaving his consumptive wife and child to Honduras. Okay.
He met her at the University of Texas in Austin when they debuted the building, and they put something in the bedrock. You have like a time capsule kind of thing. Yeah. She was the valedictorian at her high school and was honored. She got to read a poem or something and then leave it there. And that's where he met her, and he got his eyes were all aflutter. He was into her. She was into him. They're both smarties. They're both kind of sickly and wasn't great with pennies and money as maybe he should have been. Not. Maybe he was just better with words. But he takes off for Honduras, and then he finds out his wife is dying. So the police in Austin took some compassion upon him, and they let him come home. And then she passes away. They sentence him to prison, but they give him a very light sentence. So so he spends a few years at the Ohio Penitentiary.
Which tells me he must have been an exceedingly charming personality. Right?
Yes. Well, he also, one of his earliest, he was always working at banks and clerks and stuff like that. Like, he didn't go to college. So he had to kind of like roll up his sleeves, and he figured out a way to get into the writing as a career. So what he did was he was very good at sketching, by the way. He would draw maps and figures, for people. And then he would sketch and doodle around it, and it was always very clever. So he had a weekly newspaper called The Rolling Stone, and it was making fun of small town newspapers. So it was a goof, which is so clever, and the irony is there. And but he's making fun of class. He's making fun of, people with money versus people without money, and he did all the drawings for it. But he, by the way, when he died, he was in poverty. He never really had money.
This is like one of those things where like I said, he's very clever. He's extremely like, let's be clear. He starts his writing career, like as O. Henry, as we know him, in prison.
Yeah.
He's writing these stories from prison and getting them published, which means, again, he has to charm whoever's in charge of somebody at the prison. Had to be okay with that.
They liked him.
They liked him. He's a very likable, charming guy. He's extremely bright, extremely talented, not as savvy with the dollars. There's some choices he's made that are.
Yeah. I mean, I guess money was always tight. And that's a subject we'll talk about, obviously, in this story, because that's a huge part of this story as well. This is also America at the time. And so for those of us that are fans of the Gilded Age, your friend was just on the show. I was very impressed. They just by the way, it was signed up for a third season. So there will be a new season. Very excited. But this is the time where we're post-Civil War, turn of the century, where some people are making a lot of money. People are moving to cities to make it, never what they want to do. And so some people have monopolies on things, and some people, they're the haves and the have-nots, and there's high society happening in America similar to what was happening in Europe, but this is new money. He gets out of prison, so he moves to New York City in 1902, and then for several years he wrote a story a week for the New York Sunday World, and every week he turned out a story.
It's amazing. It's really amazing. And for those of you, I mean, we mostly know him today for this particular story that we're going to talk about, but it's hard to convey how pervasive he was in the culture at the time. I would ask you to, at some point when you're at your public library, go and find yourself the collected works of O. Henry. It's like a whole shelf. Mm-hmm. It's massive. He wrote and wrote and wrote.
At least 300 short stories. Yeah, he's hundreds of short stories, and then there's compendiums, and then there's just all kinds of. He was constantly churning it out, and so that's where we get to our story today. It was first published in 1905. And he dies just a few years later. He was only 47. He was an alcoholic on top of everything of his problems. Yeah. You know, New York's never been an easy city. New York can be rough. Publishing is tough. It's hard to make a living.
No, you know, this time in New York's history is particularly, I mean, talking about the Gilded Age, you know, we have the haves and the have-nots, and there's not really a middle class, which is kind of what he would have been. But that's not really a thing. You know, he wasn't rich. He wasn't born to wealth, didn't marry wealth. And although he was extremely, I mean, so talented and so influential, everybody in America read his work on a regular basis, like a weekly sitcom almost. You know, it's hard. It's a similar kind of a thing. So this story, it's 1905. It starts. We're right. It's a short story. If you've never read it, it's like you can read it like waiting in line at Costco to check out.
There's
like it's
so many YouTube clips you could just stream, and it's different people reading it. It does not take that long. But like Margos said, it's a great one for teachers to teach kids because they have a surprise. You know, his whole thing was he liked twist endings and surprise endings. This is before Hemingway and all that. Like, he may seem kind of folksy and corny to people.
Yeah.
Which maybe that's like, but I mean, he has a story that's lasted forever. I mean, I
think Hemingway is a good one to bring up, Margot, because what struck me reading at this time, and this, of course, I've read this how many times since childhood, but particularly like the sentence structure, like he's not giving you any extra. It's a very Hemingway-esque approach to writing, I thought this time around, especially because we just recently read Hemingway. He wrote this story, a tavern that is still open in New York City. This tavern, and it is at 129 East 18th Street.
I'm sure I've been there.
I'm sure you have. I'm looking at the picture of it. I know. I'm pretty positive that I've been there. It's on the corner of Irving Place in the Gramercy Park neighborhood. Yeah, still there. It is the oldest continuously operating restaurant and bar in New York City. So he just like sat there, as Margot said, like he enjoyed a drink.
He did. One of the we didn't mention he did take on the nom de plume O. Henry, and there's not really a story of confirmed story of what it might have been. People said it's either could have been Ohio Penitentiary, like he played around with the names, an anagram. It could have been that he did have a cat named Henry, so when they were living in Texas, so he might have been saying, "Oh Henry, oh Henry," or it could have been a bartender, which most likely it could have been a favorite bartender that was named Henry.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows
the answer. Nobody knows. You know, again, he probably needed a nom de plume because he was in prison.
He probably didn't want people investigating too much in his past.
Probably not.
He also, by the way, he's one of the few that's been recorded. He actually was on record reading some of his stories, which is interesting to listen to. And he just sounds like a delightful person. But in Austin and in Greensboro, those are two places they have museums for him. So there's a set at Christmas time in 1905, and we have Della and Jim Dillingham. Dillingham Young or Dillingham? But they're
Dillingham Young.
Okay.
Yeah, the Dillingham Youngs, which sounds fancy, but it really is not.
He makes $20 a week. He was making $30 a week, but they brought him down to 20. And so he and his wife are living on that, which is about...
His pay has been cut by a third.
Right. And it's about $27,000 in today's dollars, but try to live on $27,000 in New York.
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck. Where are you going to find to live, much less? They're very, very poor. She has like a brown hat and a brown coat. He has like an overcoat. He doesn't have gloves. But they love each other very much. And she also has this long, gorgeous brown hair that goes down to her past her knees.
They're very poor, we established, but that doesn't mean that they don't have anything.
No, they have value.
Have pride in and value of. She has this luxurious hair, and he has and I love the way he kind of goes on about the hair. Yes, he has a watch. I'm just going to read the first paragraph. Just so we can like listen to the way that he gets you, the way that he begins the story. And again, this kind of sparseness of sentence structure. And yet we're getting a complete three-dimensional picture of what we're dealing with here. So here we go. Gift to the Magi. Very first paragraph. $1.87. That was all. And 60 cents of it was in pennies. Pennies saved 1 and 2 at a time by bulldozing the grocer and the vegetable man and the butcher until one's cheeks burned with the silent imputation of parsimony that such close dealing implied. 3 times Della counted it, $1.87. And the next day would be Christmas. And that's the first paragraph. I mean, and that tells you everything you need to know. It's been a rough year for Della.
Della works hard for the money.
Yes, she does.
She works hard to keep that home together, and they adore each other. And so she has her beautiful hair, and he has this gorgeous watch, this pocket watch that was handed down to him from his grandfather to his father and then to him. And so these are beautiful things that they have in their lives. They don't really have that much else, and there's not a lot of money around for presents. And it's like $1.87 is like $50, and you could get somebody something nice for $50 back then. But they were both like, but that doesn't feel like Christmas. Christmas should be a gift. Like, I should be really sacrificing something for you. And so there's this woman who has a shop, a hairdresser person down the street, who is looking at her hair. It's like, oh my God, I could make so many wigs from your hair. And wigs with real human hair cost a lot.
Yeah, even today, they're extremely pricey.
To get a decent wig is very, very hard. And she's very young and her hair is beautiful and she takes good care of it. And so the woman's like, I'll give you $20 for your hair. You know, cuts it off basically at the scalp.
A month's wages. Or is it a week's wages?
A week's wage.
$20 a week? A week's wages. But still, a week's wages.
I mean, she could have probably gotten more for it, I thought, frankly, if she paid $20 that easily for it. But she was like, I'll take it. And then the stores are closing. It's Christmas Eve, okay? And he's not home yet, so she's trying to find him a gift. And then all she could think of is, oh my God, there's this
a fob.
A bob?
A fob with an F. F-O-B.
That connects, because he's always using like old leather straps and stuff to put the watch on that. And she goes, no, this is a beautiful watch. You should have a really nice fob on it. That would be awesome. So she gets him that. And then she runs home and then she sees herself in the mirror, and the woman did just a hack job. Like, I think she thought, I'm going to cut this before she changes her mind and just chomp, chomp, chomp. So she's got this old fashioned curling iron. She's trying to like, well, maybe I'll make it cute. And she keeps telling herself, my hair grows fast. My hair grows fast. It's not a big deal. Jim comes home and he sees her and he's like completely stunned. And she can't tell, is he mad or...
And I think O. Henry does a really awesome job of keeping the reader in suspense. And again, all the action happens super
right.
Like before you like, wait, she cut her hair? What? You just told me how great it was. And now he's home and oh my gosh, what's she gonna do? And we don't know. We don't know from his reaction. He is so stunned that we don't know, is he, because we haven't met him yet. This is the first we're meeting him.
Right.
So we don't know, like, what kind of a guy is this guy? You know, is he going to be like, well, no wife of mine is going to have, we don't know. So it's a really awesome part of the story, for the reader it's a very thrilling part to read, because you just don't know who this guy is and how he's going to react to this very extreme thing that's just happened.
And she just has the one hat. It's cold in New York. I'm telling y'all, these people are poor. So he looks at her and then she's like, oh God, I look terrible, don't I? Look, I promise you it'll grow out, but I just wanted to get you something special for Christmas and I sold my hair. And he said, well, what did you get me? And so she shows him this gold chain, this beautiful chain, the fob. And he starts laughing. He's like, boy, this is irony here. Somebody tell Alanis Morissette, because this is real irony here. Because I got you these beautiful combs to put in your hair, and a comb, not like you brush your hair with it. A comb has jewelry on it. It's a jewelry. It's a piece of jewelry. Yeah, for your hair that one would wear in one's hair. Yes. And it was really fancy, and so he sold his watch in order to get her those combs. So they both gave up something they really treasured, but they did it because they really want to do something special for the person that they love. And they basically are like, gosh, we're so lucky we have each other. Yes. and that's the other thing. So then
just the way that it's written is so cool. First of all, I always thought reading this as a child that like she made out in that deal because her hair will grow back and she'll be able to use those combs one day. His watch is gone forever.
Right.
So just let's be clear. But the way, so then he reveals, the way that it's revealed is very interesting, I think, because you figure out, oh, he's not stunned because of the way she looks, that she's so dramatically looks so different. He's stunned because he's trying to figure out how to tell her.
Right. He feels bad.
Like, he feels bad. That watch that you like chopped your hair off, I don't have it anymore. And he says it to her, like, spoiler alert. He says it to her, sorry. He basically says like, listen, I sold the watch. Let's just make dinner. You know? And yeah, they both kind of laugh it off because they both have the realization, not as everybody, I think of, you know, what came to mind reading it this time around was, did you ever see that episode of the Kardashians when Kim was married to her first husband and he threw her in the ocean and she lost her diamond earring?
I know that episode because they used to talk about it on The Soup, but
it's hilarious. I'm sorry. It's freaking hilarious. I hope some local diver found it and was able to feed their family for a long time. He throws her like in a spontaneous, like, and again, you're making a TV show, throw her in the ocean.
Right.
And she loses her diamond earring. She is inconsolable. And the reason that people bring that up all the time is people are always like, yeah, that's when the marriage ended. Was like, she did not think that was fun and spontaneous and cute and like, oh, but at least we have each other. In Bora Bora or wherever they were, it was the opposite of this situation. So you know, Jim and Della, Jim, right? That's his name.
Yes, they say James and Jim. So
yeah, so Jim and Della, you know, they could have easily reacted to this realization of what's just happened with crestfallenness,
depression.
You know? Like,
oh my God, we're broke.
You're super broke now. And what do we got? We've got some chains and a stupid comb that we, you know, whatever. We got some combs and a stupid chain. Like, what are we going to do with this now? We can't eat it. Can't pay the rent with it. So, but that's not what happens.
No.
Each one of them realizes that the other one made a real sacrifice, and they really appreciate it. And it just makes their love stronger. And you realize at the end of the story, like that strong depth of their love is what's going to get them through this very ill-fated couple of purchases that they've just made.
It's beautiful.
It's super good.
Yeah, and if you're wondering, the gifts of the Magi, there's also a mention of Solomon and Sheba, which is King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, and this is just how beautiful those two were and wise, and they had a lot of like things going for them besides the hair and the watch. But the Magi were the people, they brought gifts to the manger, to the baby Jesus. So they went out. There was a long trip they had to go to get to him, to, you know, this little farm, you know, and that's where they were. So it's just sort of talking about the sacrifice of gift giving and how it means more to the person that gives and the one that receives, that it is more important to give than to receive, and to put your heart into something really matters. And so it's a good message.
It's one of those stories that you read it maybe as a child and you simply do not ever forget it. It really stays with you. I don't know why, but I
remember as a
really
kid, we would like, oh, he brought her the comb. We're like, no.
Yes, I remember having the same reaction. And, you know, anybody brings up that story and I instantly know, I remember exactly what happens. I remember her like being worried and with the hat and like trying to curl the whole thing. It's so interesting. You know, again, it's like a Christmas Carol, although it's a pamphlet compared to A Christmas Carol, which is already kind of short, but,
right.
But it just stays with you. It's a story too that gets adapted over and over. I mean, countless television shows have done a Gift of the Magi episode. I don't even know how many at this point. And
it's a trope.
It is a trope. It's become a trope. But this, you know, the original source material it's super, super good. Mm-hmm. So a perfect, wholesome option.
Margot, that is the word that went through my head a few times this week. Between this,
You think?
between this and then the movie we're going to talk about, I'm like, this is the most wholesome, and the ad that we have, like everything is so wholesome.
True. This is very true.
Very, very wholesome. So do we want to play the trailer and we'll go into our this is going to be so much fun. All right, here's the trailer for the 1978 TV movie. Came out December 8th, I believe it was, for The Gift of Love.
Today I'm in a mood for joy and love. And so I'll tell you about Beth and Rudy.
I have come to apologize. I will not be able to sleep tonight without your forgiveness.
Whether you sleep tonight is no concern of mine.
I should like to be of assistance. You see, I am a teacher of the sport.
That's very kind of you, but it won't be necessary.
How else can I tell only a friend how wonderful she is?
You mustn't.
Okay, so we have so much to talk about here. I mean, first of all...
Okay, we have a lot to talk about. Okay, let me just start. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to start... Okay, so we were talking about this off the air.
Go ahead.
Okay. TV movies in the 1970s. They tend...
Good place to start. This is because people don't know. If you weren't around then, it's hard to understand what a big deal they were.
My friend's son was like watching like an old TV movie. I think it was Brian's Song or something. His dad told him to watch it. And he's like, how do people watch TV? It's so dark. Like, I can't see anything that's in the room. And it's because they use the same sets for everything. So I'm saying, like, I bet you this was the Lizzie Borden set. Like, Elizabeth Montgomery.
I'm sure it was. I'm positive that the set of this movie we probably have seen in episodes of Andy Griffith.
Yes.
It was probably in The Gambler when we did The Gambler. Probably some of those same sets. They cranked these out, but they were a major part of our culture. You know, TV, although it's still a very big deal now. It was definitely like there weren't very many channels. You just had 3 networks. Everybody watched the same things. So when a TV movie came out, everybody watched it, and you would talk about it at school the next day, or you would talk about it at work the next day. We also had, at this same time, the other thing that was big in our television and our culture was variety shows. Sonny and Cher, the Brady Hour, where we took the Brady Bunch cast and acted like they were a real family for some reason.
But no, Jan, they because Eve Plum wouldn't do it.
We just recast one of them. I love Eve Plum.
Eve Plum is fantastic. I got to meet her once. She did a show in New York, and she's hilarious. Captain and Tennille. And they all had dancers, and so there was a shtick, like, you know, some of them had swimming, like they had like synchronized swimming.
Yes, and Donnie and Marie, their thing was ice skating for some reason
because they're from Utah.
They're from Utah, where there's lots of snow. If you don't know, it's Utah is famous for winter sports. It's a weird time. The Mandrell sisters, remember the Mandrell sisters?
Yes, I loved Barbara Mandrell.
Sha Na Na had a variety show. It was you would have music, you would have dancing. Everybody and these poor people who were the stars had to do all of this stuff. It didn't matter, like, if you weren't a singer or you weren't a dancer or you weren't an actor. You're going to do all those things, and you're also expected to be funny. By the way, when we're gonna bring in old Hollywood stars, and you're gonna like show them off, and it's going to be a whole thing. So our director for this movie, his name is Tony Martin. He's known for direct a little special called The Osmonds at the Ohio State Fair. and then we have our executive producer team, top brass: Alan Osmond, Donnie Osmond, Jimmy Osmond, Jay Osmond, Meryl Osmond, Tom Osmond, and Burl Osmond. Oh, and Wayne Osmond.
I had a crush on Wayne.
Those are our executive producers. Who had a crush on Wayne? Jimmy had a song. What was that song that he had?
The Osmond brothers were very,
Jimmy.
very famous in the 70s. They
were everywhere.
Yeah, I listened to the 70s channel a lot on Sirius. The Osmonds had a ton of hits. And then it was the older brothers, and then it was Marie did some country stuff, and then she and Donnie had a variety show from like 77 to 79 or something.
Yeah, right again, exactly the same time that this movie is made. Jimmy Osmond, by the way. So Jimmy Osmond and this was a Christmas #1 in the UK. It wasn't really a hit so much in the US.
No.
But for our UK listeners, Jimmy Osmond is yes, he is that Jimmy Osmond that sang Long-Haired Lover from Liverpool.
Yeah. He goes every Christmas, they do that month of shows. I forget what it's called.
Yes. So Donnie and Marie are the two youngest of the Osmond clan, of which there's, how many of them are there?
Like
there's so many of them.
They're Mormon, and so...
Yes, George and Olive, right?
Right. And Marie played Olive in her own TV movie that was about her brothers.
Yeah, 9 of them. There's 9 children.
9 kids.
Jimmy is the youngest.
Yes,
Jimmy is the very baby youngest. But he came along kind of a bit later. And so for a long time, Donnie and Marie were the youngest. But the older brothers, we should say, were a civ entertainment juggernaut from the time they were very, very tiny. They were on the
Andy Williams.
What's the guy? Andy Williams, Moon River. He would have them on. They could really sing.
Yeah.
And I did a little unsettling, I got to say, like as a parent myself now, like they're really young being pushed out on television then all over on tour and all the stuff that they did.
And they also, the father was very strict with the kids and used corporal punishment. Donnie said later he kind of resented some of it. Like he wished he'd had more of a childhood because they were just always on the road.
Would be out on the road, like Margos says. And Donnie and Marie, who were the youngest, they were home. And so they actually were super, super close. They really, really bonded together. Then eventually Donnie kind of gets sucked up into the brother act for a while. Mm-hmm. But eventually, as Margos said, the mom is like, well, Marie should have a way to, what we're not doing is we're not in, because they were in kind of pop music. And so they kind of market Marie as a country singer. And she does have a very kind of country-y kind of a voice. Mm-hmm. And she's a teenager, like a freaking middle schooler with, I think, a #1.
Paper Roses.
With Paper Roses. Paper Roses. And, I mean, I cannot stress enough that she is a child.
I'm so impressed when I watch Donnie and Marie. They are like 15 and 16. I mean, they're very young.
I'm stunned.
I am. They have
stunned.
so much poise.
I'm stunned and with a whisper of outrage. Because here's the thing. An extremely talented family. Okay. I mean, nobody's denying that. And I do believe, as a parent, in nurturing the talent of a child. I think that's great. You should, but there's a line, and so this line is like, what they decide with what did I say? 9 kids?
Yeah.
What they decide with their 9 kids is that the children's show business career is they pool the money. Okay. So first of all, the children are the breadwinners, which is already a thing I'm having issues with. But the children are breadwinners, #1. #2, they pool the money. So how are you pooling the money when it's kids? I do not know. But this is the way that we're thinking about it somehow. So by the time Donnie and Marie are teenagers, the older boys are older. They're getting married. They're having
lots
lives,
of kids.
They all have many children. Let's just say that. So then Donnie and Marie, have this. Marie's got the country thing going on. Donnie is very cute, very matinee idol, Tiger Beat kind of. He's getting into those years there. I think I saw a story like Donnie was recording "I'm Leaving It All Up to You," right?
Yep.
And they needed somebody to sing the harmony, and they bring Marie in, and they're like, "Whoa, this is great!" And so they market it as Donnie and Marie, and now we're Donnie and Marie, and so Donnie and Marie get this television show where, as Margos said, they are doing skits, they are dancing, they are ice skating, they are acting, they are singing, they are presenting weekly.
It was a weekly show.
A whole freaking show, extravaganza, every single week. And Marie is like 16 when they start doing this. She's a high schooler.
They were getting on her case about her weight. They like the studios.
This is the 70s. Yeah. There were these grown men had no problem telling her that she needed to be thinner. She needed to look different. Go on a diet. Yeah. I get very angry about it. Because, and not that it's not good, like they are doing enough phenomenal job.
I put a clip on of them with Bob Hope, and it's a stupid, and they're hilarious.
They're way funnier than he is.
Yeah. They have better comic timing. They don't break character. They just stick with it. I mean, they're amazing. I loved this show.
I loved the show too. And I remember kids having Donnie and Marie lunchboxes in elementary school. But, again, I'm watching it as a parent. I have a 20-year-old daughter now. This child on this show with her brother, and they are working these children to the breaking point. And not only that, they are now the breadwinners for that entire blasted family, which I think is a ridiculous amount of pressure to put on any person, let alone a child.
And they weren't paid as much as they should have been. Because
there's
they're
no way they
kids.
were.
But they have agents and managers. They also have tithing to their church.
Train.
That 10% goes there. I mean, it's a lot of work. And they both said that later on that they were a little resentful. Like, I would have loved to have just been normal, to go on regular dates and just, but they were doing Hawaiian Punch commercials. They were doing Going Coconuts. Remember that movie? That was They were. Yep. And it would burn out. I mean, it was a machine that they had to keep going.
Possibly keep that up? Like, I couldn't even watch one of them a week. I don't think, it's exhausting just to watch.
All the shows were like that too.
There were so many shows. Like, it was so chaotic and frenetic. It was really weird. Yeah, I just really feel for them watching this and reading about it this week. And one of the things I remember hearing about Marie Osmond that I'm kind of thinking about differently this week is at some point a long time ago. Oh, and we should let's talk about just Marie for a minute.
Okay.
Because this woman really works.
She is so beautiful, by the way.
She's so pretty.
She is so pretty. She must have had so many suitors chasing after her because she was just sweet and lovely and talented.
She's remarkably grounded for how
poised.
Always, yeah. The only girl with 8 boys. Let's just start there.
Right.
A very strict upbringing from what I can see. And then this, like I said, this just criminal, as far as I'm concerned, amount of pressure that was put on her.
I have a question.
Before she could even drive, I think.
Because at one point they had a studio in Orem, Utah. And I wonder if part of that's because of the labor laws in LA. Like, kids can only work a certain amount and they weren't going to make them adults because they're not. So
I was watching, I don't remember, there were several bios with her available, and she was talking about, so yes, as you said, at one point the family ups and moves to Utah. She did not want to move to Utah. She had grown up in California. She felt like that was her home. But she says, but I was the only one who didn't want to move back to Utah, and it was majority rule, so we had to go. The talk shows she's been done, and I think she's good at the talk shows. I've seen
that was a great show.
A number of talk shows. I love the one that was just her. I liked the one that was Donnie and Marie. It was a very Regis Kathy Lee kind of an energy. But she had a long running one that was just her, and I thought she was super good.
She's very relatable. For someone so beautiful and talented, she is, like you said, grounded. There's something very nurturing about her, or vulnerable, or what it is, but she feels like she could be a friend.
She's been
genuine.
Yeah. It's really weird, and I don't know why that is, but it's just supposed to be something about her nature. She's been married a couple of times. She has, I think, 8 children, a number of whom are adopted. She sadly lost her son. He died by suicide. And I remember when that happened, it was so sad. But she also has, although this is another thing about the Osmonds, politics is the third rail with the Osmonds. Like, they don't go anywhere. They're not it does not exist as far as they're concerned. And so I would say of all the Osmonds, we could argue she is maybe the most political, but this is such a tiny little baby step. Like, all she has done is spoken out, which is a lot. I'm not saying all, because again, she's grew up in a community that is not very friendly to LGBT people. She has a daughter who is a lesbian, and she's been very vocal about supporting her and saying, like, they're people, they should have right. Everybody should have a right to live with who they love and share responsibilities, like, like everybody else. And that's like, that is like, she's basically Angela Davis, as far as if you compared to the rest of the Osmonds, they
community.
Don't talk about this at all.
Yeah, they don't. And also, Steve Young's wife, he's Mormon, and she converted to marry him. She has a gay brother, and when Proposition 8 came out, she had all these lawn signs like "No hate on 8," or like, it was very vocal, which is. In that community, it's a big deal to stand up and say, no, this is wrong. This is not okay. Yeah. So, and
I'm not saying,
pre-progressive.
I'm not saying Marie is like Angela Davis.
No.
Just to be clear.
No.
I was just saying, compared to the rest of the family, that is like so much, way more political than any of the Osmonds ever
and talks about mental health, and she talks about
that too. Yeah.
And the dolls. She had a really big thing for dolls.
So she sold dolls on QVC. So here's the other thing.
And I would watch.
Oh, I would watch too, because she's so pretty. She's extremely crafty. She's a very, very crafty lady. And so she had a line. I think she still has something to do with quilting, the quilting world. She had a line of sewing machines, but she also is a sculptor. So those dolls, she sculpted them.
Oh, wow.
She sculpted those dolls herself. She didn't just like, oh, I love dolls, I'm going to sell dolls on QVC. Like, she shows every little detail and actually sculpted the dolls herself, which is amazing.
She married very young because...
Yes.
Yeah. And he was like a sports guy, like a basketball player or
something.
Oh,
yeah, this is very interesting. I forgot this detail till this week.
And when they divorced, it was also a huge deal for them to get divorced. So she married her manager for a while. They split up, and then she went and remarried her first husband, and they're very happy.
Yeah,
so.
Look at that.
I didn't expect to talk about Marie so much today, but
I know. But I just came away this week with a real admiration for Marie. So, getting back to this movie, as we said, so this is the kind of maelstrom. She is 19 years old, y'all. Okay.
Yeah, she's
19.
19, and everybody's like trying to find out who she's dating, and if and she probably wanted to go to college and do normal things, but anyway. TV movies.
Sure.
TV movies, we've seen, you and I have talked before about all the Scrooge adaptations that are out there. There's the little girl, matchstick girl or something. There's always these. So this was, and we love A Turn of the Century. And we were just saying they probably use the same costumes in the Lizzie Borden movie and on the other shows. But let's just go into this movie. It's Marie Osmond plays Beth, and she's an orphan who's being raised by a very wealthy family, and it's a situation where they want her to marry well. So she's like the downstairs maid. She's the parlor help.
No, she's not a maid. No. She's got a friend. Okay. It's a little confusing because of the way that the script is written. And I was also confused. I had to go back and watch it a couple of times. Again, it's Gilded Age, New York City. The costumes, we'll get to the costumes. So we'll just put a little pin in that, okay? We open with a character who is supposed to be O. Henry himself.
Yes.
And he's like, O. Henry here. Oh, we're going to, it's Christmas time. And we're going to, I have a lot of Christmas stories. And here's one of them. And they're not using the same names from the story at all.
No. It's called The Gift of Love, by the way, I forgot to say. It's not even called The Gift of the Magi.
It's not The Gift of the Magi. It's called The Gift of Love. And so Marie is playing, what is her name again? I'm sorry.
Beth.
What's her name? Beth. So here's Beth Steele. Beth is 19. Beth is 19, taking a break from her variety show that she has to produce every week to support her entire family. But Beth, our character, an orphan. Her mother, Beth's mother, had been very, very wealthy, but refused to marry for money and ran off with a musician. Aggrieved the rest of her family. They kind of cut the mother off. And so Beth didn't really know the rest of her family until after her parents die. So now her parents are gone and she's being raised by her mother's brother, who was the patriarch of the family.
Donald Moffat.
And he's like, oh, and he's wonderful. I love Donald Moffat.
I do too. He's always good.
He's such a great character actor. It's a really good cast. And his wife, June Lockhart, whose father we talked about last week in Miracle on 34th Street.
That's
her
right.
dad played the judge. So that her aunt and uncle are now raising her, and they're not her uncle's like, I'm not going to make the same mistake, that I did not going to let you get away the way I let your mom get away. We're going to make sure you marry right. I'm looking after your interests. And he does seem to genuinely care about her. It's not.
Oh, they love her.
Entirely about money. Yeah, they're very fond of her. But again, this is the culture of the time.
Women can't vote then. Women can't get their own bank accounts. I mean, you really are tied to the person you're married to. And money does give you some freedom, unfortunately.
It really kind of is about that. Yeah. So they have arranged what they see to be an extremely suitable match, that Beth should marry a young man who is he's rich enough that he can pursue his passion of ornithology, aka bird watching. But he's like a respected ornithologist. He's played by James Woods, and he's doing his nerdy best. He's a super nerd.
I don't agree with his politics, but I think he's a fantastic actor. And I think he's really good.
He's a great
Alfred here.
He's really good in this.
Yeah.
And Alfred is also an orphan. And he has an older sister who is the kind of dominating force in their family, Agnes, who is played by
Bethel Leslie,
who I remember her. If you, like me, watched All My Children, the soap opera All My Children.
Not very much, but yeah.
So one of the matriarchs, what I loved about All My Children was it was really a matriarchy. It was posing as a patriarchy. All My Children, one of the matriarchs was Myrtle, who ran the boarding house. And Myrtle was sort of like Jessica Kane's conscience. Bethel Leslie played Myrtle's sister on All My Children. So that's where I know her from.
Is that an ABC one?
Yes, it's an ABC.
So that makes sense. So this is an ABC movie.
Mm-hmm. So, but all together, so that's the situation. She's rich. The two families are arranging this marriage between her and the nerdy ornithologist, who's perfectly nice. But they do a really excellent job of having no chemistry whatsoever.
That's not a love
they're
match.
Not supposed to.
But they like each other fine. Match. But like it's been decided for the both of them, you are going to be married, and when you do, you're going to go on a trip. You're going to go bird watching in New Zealand, and she's like, but what? Because she doesn't understand.
Yeah. Because Beth has just shown up after her parents have died, and she's living in her aunt and uncle's house. She has become best friends with the maid.
I love her. It's an Irish maid.
Really good.
Sandra West is her name?
Sandra West. She's very good. So this Sandra West, Mary O'Halloran, because of course they're all Irish.
That's all my people.
All the servants are Irish.
Here, yep.
From Brooklyn.
From Cork to Brooklyn.
They're best friends. They're besties. And so that's really her confidant. The aunt and uncle are like, I don't know about her being friends with the maid, but she does need friends. So they kind of allow it. And the maid is sort of also a chaperone. And so they go, it's Christmas time. They go ice skating in Central Park. And that is where they meet two recent Swiss immigrants by Robert Pierce.
And Timothy Bottoms, who's never been cuter. We talked about him when we talked about the Larry McMurtry movie. What am I thinking of? The Last Picture Show.
He's wonderful. He's so good in The Last Picture Show, as we went on at length. He's super cute in this. He's great. And then his best friend, I think, also is Robert Pierce is excellent too. He's a character actor that you've seen. I remember him from Joni Loves Chachi.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, but he's been on everything. He's been on television he is on television all the time and has always been on television. He's just one of those people that shows up and he's in that one episode about something. So these two guys are Franz and Rudy, Swiss immigrants, and we established that they both have been betrothed to girls back home in Switzerland, but they're in the U.S. trying to kind of make a little bit of money so they can go back and get married. But in the meantime, that doesn't mean they can't have a little fun. So they're also ice skating in the park. First, the Mary takes a shine to Franz and thinks he's super cute. And so she's like, well, your friend Rudy, he can take my friend Beth ice skating. And so they're ice skating. It's very cute. It's a very cute scene. And I love we're showcasing her ice skating. They're both pretty good.
She's been doing it for a while. So she's an Osmond. She'll do anything you ask. Like she just puts it together. Yeah. So they start, it's that whole thing of like, he woos her and she's like, no. But he like wins her over. And in the meantime, when she goes home and she's hanging out with her family, with Alfred and Agnes and then her aunt and uncle, they're talking about her going someplace else. One night, the aunt and uncle are going to a party and they say, do you want to go to this party with us? It's with the Astors. And she's like, nah, I'll just stay home and work on my music. Because she's a music instructor. Sorry,
she's a music instructor.
She's a really good. She teaches singing and piano to kids.
Yes, she volunteers at a home for recent immigrants. I forget what they call it. But people who are just freshly arrived, and she looks after the children so that the parents can go work like a daycare, and then she also teaches them music, which is basically just this one song.
But she sings it very well. She's got a beautiful voice. Yeah.
If you will come with me, I will share with you my vision, and maybe you will see the way your future will be when all my prayers come true. You'll have peace and joy forever and evermore, and one thing more for you, worth much more than any treasure. May you have the pleasure of the precious gift of love.
No one sang for me like that one.
Listen, at this point, although she's 19, she's a very, very seasoned professional. I think she's doing a super good job. We're getting a little bit of levity. We're getting a little bit of drama. It's her first movie, really. They had to like go in coconuts.
Dramatic role, Margo.
It's her first dramatic role. Yes, her first movie is Going Coconuts. But this is the one she made after. And anyway, so she's supposed to go with Alfred, her betrothed, to the Astor's ball with her aunt and uncle. But then Alfred is sick or something. He can't go. So he cancels. And so she decides, well, I'll stay home and work on my music.
Miss Browning isn't feeling well. Alfred feels his place is with her this evening.
Oh, dear. Then you won't be going to the concert.
No.
Oh, and your Uncle William and I have been invited to the charity dinner at the Fifth Avenue Hotel for the committee to collect charity Bibles for the deserving poor. Oh. Well, then we just won't go, that's all.
And miss the caviar and the salmon and aspic?
Oh, dear. Yes, the salmon and aspics. Well, perhaps I am being hasty. But, well then, dear, what will you do for dinner? The servants are all busy getting ready for that ridiculous party.
Oh, I'm sure Cook has something in the icebox. I'll be fine, really.
Hasn't Alfred arrived yet?
Oh, he's not coming. Agnes is ill. Oh, William, dear, what shall we do?
Whatever Beth wishes us to do, of course. Would you prefer we stayed at home with you? Or perhaps you'd care to accompany us to the dinner?
No, thank you, Uncle William. I'm quite content to stay at home. I'll work on my music.
Ah, now there's a dear, lovely, level-headed girl, William. She'll work on her music.
Splendid.
But really, that's not what's going to go on.
She hangs out with the maid at a very fun party, and Rudy's there, and she has a really great time.
It's the butler's ball for all of the servants. You know, it's because it's Christmas. Again, it's Christmas time. And so all of the servants in New York City are at this very fancy party. Not very fancy. It's a big party. It's not fancy. But they're calling it the butler's ball. Now, I went and looked up in the New York Times. This was a thing. There was a butler's ball that happened every year. And actually, the one that I read about was happening during the Civil War, I think. And it was at the Astor home.
Oh my
goodness.
goodness.
It was on, I think it was on New Year's Eve. And so, they would have an annual ball for all of the servants. And that was a real thing. And so Mary takes Beth. And Mary, this is where the confusion is. So when Mary meets the two boys in the park, she knows that if she introduces Beth as her boss, sensibly, like that's going to be a whole vibe that nobody wants. So she tells the boys that Beth is also a maid.
Okay, that's why it was confusing me.
Yeah,
Okay.
She says, well, I'm the downstairs maid and Beth is the upstairs maid. And so at the butler's ball, they keep up this charade of Beth being an upstairs maid. And Rudy is there. Boys are there. And so she dances with Rudy. They have great chemistry. They're adorable. I could watch them all night long. And but each time, like with the skating, there's this whole thing, like when they're skating, he accidentally knocks her over and her hair comes tumbling out. And she's like, my hair. And she has like this big to-do about her hair. And she like, go away. And the same thing happens at the ball. Like she accidentally falls down again and her hair comes tumbling at my hair. She gets crowned like the belle of the ball, the prettiest girl at the butler's ball. But this causes her to be home late.
And she was
so when she arrives,
hanging out with the servants and not hanging out at the Astor house.
Yes.
Which was a big no-no.
Yes. And she tells, to her credit, she tells her aunt and uncle that that's where she was. She's like, listen, this happened. I decided she invited me. And she said she didn't say she invited me. She actually did not throw her friend under the bus. She said she brought me home is what she said. But she does tell her aunt and uncle that was where she was.
Well, why aren't you in bed? Don't tell me you spent the entire evening sitting around in that expensive dress.
Good evening. Did you have a pleasant time?
Well, it was passable. But there was no salmon in aspic. Anyway, dear, why aren't you in bed or at least undressed?
Oh, I'm tired, my dear. I think Beth's interrogation can wait until the morning, don't you?
No. I'd rather tell you now. I went to the butler's ball.
What? Oh, Beth, you did. How could you? It just isn't done.
Do I understand you to say that you went out at night without our permission?
It must be that Mary O'Halloran. I told myself no good would come of a close relationship between my niece and the lower classes.
It occurs to me it would have been better if you'd told Beth.
Yes, William, of course. Oh, Beth, dear, how could you let yourself be led astray by that?
It wasn't Mary's idea. She even insisted that I leave.
It doesn't matter whose idea it was. Beth is old enough to know right from wrong. I'm very disappointed in you, Beth. I have been relatively easy in my mind about your behavior, knowing that you've been brought up by my dear sister, and then turned over to your Aunt Constance's, well, I have not seen fit to deal harshly with you, but now all that has changed. Your behavior tonight has shown a distressing lack of restraint.
Oh, William, she'll never go to the butler's ball again. Will you, dear? I can understand sneaking out to go to Mrs. Astor's, but a hall full of servants.
That's enough, Constance. The social standing of the company Beth chooses to sneak away to is of no importance. What is important is that she's not to be trusted.
And the uncle, this is where the uncle like really lowers the boom and flips out. And he's like, okay, like, I'm not going to fire your friend, but you can't be hanging out. You're no longer friends. Friendship over. And you don't get to go anywhere without your aunt along. And the aunt's like, well, I didn't agree to this.
Wow.
What's going on here?
This is the new thing. And I realized she can't date her Rudy because she's Constance is like hanging around with her all the time. And it's a really sweet scene where Alfred and Agnes come over and the uncle is saying, okay, if you two get married, and it's turning into a business deal. Like,
yeah,
they're
like bargaining with these kids' lives.
And Alfred goes over to her and he says, are you okay? And she's like, oh yeah, I'm fine. He goes, really? I really feel like this isn't what you want to do. You know, it doesn't seem like, and he's being very like, me neither. I want to just look at birds. I just want to do this for a living. That's all I want to do.
The entire amount goes to my niece on her wedding day. Assuming, of course, she marries with my approval.
Well, there's no worry there.
Of course not.
Shall we get on with it?
Is something wrong, Alfred?
Why?
Well,
Everything's wrong.
you had a young
I
ambition.
find I don't like being treated like a commodity.
I know just how you feel.
Well, on that transaction.
I find this all very painful. The last thing in the world I would want to do is to hurt you. You're a very kind person, Beth.
So are you.
Life can be very painful for kind people.
That's true.
We really don't want to be married to each other, do we?
Well,
Come on, out with it.
Well, there is someone else.
Well, for me too. Well, not someone, but something. It's my ornithology. I had planned to spend my life in search of rare species, in places that no lady would want to go. I know I seem timid sometimes, but when I'm on the trail of a reluctant bird, I know no fear. What about your someone else? Didn't he return your love?
Oh, yes.
Then why aren't you with him instead of sitting here being sold to me?
We were trying to do the right thing.
Can it be the right thing to make the wrong people happy and the right people miserable?
They will do much better in this area.
I don't want to get married either.
Right.
Yeah.
So they explain
he has stuff he wants to do.
He is, yeah. He's got some birds to look at around the world. That's his thing. So they tell the families, and they're not taking it very well.
Well, and again, to her credit, Beth's credit, she says to Alfred, she's like, oh, actually, I got to tell you, I'm in love with this other guy. And Alfred's like, well, forget it then. You need to be with that guy.
Right.
How can I help? He immediately wants to help her.
Right. And so she says, guess what? I'm not going to marry this rich dude and go all over the world with him bird watching. I'm going to marry this Swede who has no money and just showed up in New York, a couple of weeks ago. But we're in love. And they are very upset and they're not going to go to the wedding. And it's, Gilded Age once again. Like she's picking love over money.
Right. And again, there's no middle class.
Right.
It's feast or famine. And it's funny you just said Swede. There's some confusion because I think they're Swiss, but then I think they're Swiss, but I'm not 100% sure because there's families at the home, which is where they meet secretly. She secretly is meeting Rudy at the home where she volunteers. And there are the families that are there are Swedish. So there's a lot of interchange of Swede and Swiss, although we understand they're totally different countries. I'm not completely clear where Rudy is supposed to be from.
I think he's going. Yeah.
I'm not sure. But anyway.
He's Swiss or Swede. He's one of the other. One of those.
He's a foreigner. That's the problem.
That's the problem. He has no money. He's not coming with any money. It's not like they used to marry daughters off to princes overseas, just to give them some prestige. That's not what's going on here. So they're living in New York. They're broke, but they're madly in love. And it's Christmas Eve, and she's like, I want to get him something. And once again, it's $1.87. That's very important. Like, that's all the money she has.
And we're just to be clear, we're then like in the last 5 minutes of the film. It takes at least an hour for them to even kiss.
Yes.
We're taking our time here.
This is a 1978 TV. Once again, very wholesome. You could put this on and write your Christmas cards or clean or whatever, and just you would be fine. You could leave for a couple of minutes and come back and you'd totally be fine. But yeah, it takes a while to get there. But then we get to that part of the story where she sells her beautiful hair and he sells his beautiful watch. And then they both realize, oh my God, we zigged when we should have zagged, but that doesn't matter. That just means we love each other even more. And that's how they ended.
And she somehow looks even more adorable with the shorter hair.
She looks like Marie. Marie always looked great.
She looks like Marie.
Your hair. What have you done?
Don't look at me like that. I had to. It was our wedding night and Christmas Eve, and my heart was just bursting with love. And there was this place, they buy hair to make wigs, and I had no money. And oh, here, open this. It's for your watch. I know how you cherish it, and I'm always afraid that you'll lose it.
Show you my love. I had no money and I sold my watch. I sold my watch to buy you combs for the hair you sold to buy a chain for my watch. So adorable. Even more beautiful than before.
She's a little bit country. I love it. I loved it. It was super fun. I'm not mad at the pace of it. I think it's again, a TV movie has it's kind of its own, like when we talked about The Gambler, they kind of have their own leisurely pace. Because it's a long night.
There's not like 5 subplots that you're trying to keep up with. There's just the one story. That's all you're focused on. It's just these two kids falling in love, getting together, cutting their hair off. That's all. That's all there is.
Really have. You're right. We don't have a lot of subplot going on here.
No, we don't understand like Sandra West's life or anything.
Yeah, she had also been interested in Rudy's friend, but Rudy's friend went back to Switzerland.
Yeah.
So she's like, oh, well, there are plenty of fish in the sea, and that's the end of her subplot. Like, that's it.
She's adorable. She'll find somebody else. Yeah.
Oh, we're not worried about her at all.
She'll find a fireman or something.
I mean, I'm very perplexed by her costumes in this film, I have to say. I don't get it. But we live in an age where we have something like the Gilded Age. I have seen in person, dresses and costumes from this era. So I know what they look like. And even the more flamboyant ones don't look like this.
It's TV also. Like they just got to make it glitzy.
It's real gaudy.
Yes.
I'm going to just say it. Like, who is letting this child, like, you're so concerned about being prim and proper, and you're letting her go around in these extremely showy frocks.
The Astors would not approve.
No, I don't think so. I don't think.
No.
I mean, this is very Bob Mackie does the Gilded Age.
Nowadays, somebody said Gilded Age costumes. You go on your phone, you type into Google Images, boom. Then you get the idea. Back then, they're like, well, what would that mean? Like, it's like Wayland Flowers and Madam, like the Madam gown. Like, it's very.
I'm gonna post. I took screenshots because I could not. I had to be like, because it's so fleeting, and there's so many of these, and it's only Marie's costumes. Let's just be clear. It's only Marie's dresses. I'm not talking about everybody. Just her. Why are just her dresses so flamboyant? I do not know.
She's our star.
I guess, but we're trying to be prim and proper. Like I was saying, we're trying to like be super conservative, and he's trying to marry her off to this very conservative, stuffy family with a controlling sister, and this is what she's wearing. Okay, even her wedding dress is, but I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, look, when this movie came out and I was a kid, in second, third grade, I didn't care. I was like,
it's great.
This is awesome. Seriously, you can watch this with your whole family.
You sure can.
You will not offend anybody.
Yeah.
It is very wholesome.
I
loved it.
I really enjoyed it. And I think everybody in it is really, I think the cast is excellent. I love the aunt and uncle. I love Alfred and his mom. Like, Alfred is so gawky and geeky and nerdy, and then turns out to be a really good guy. And then I love all the servants it's really nice. And so, we don't care that it's not real ice that they're skating on. We don't care that, I'm going along with it. I'm enjoying it. And I gotta say, Marie is killing it.
She is a gifted performer. She truly, I truly mean that. That she is like a mega talent. She has so much charisma, so much poise. She has a beautiful voice.
And that relatability that you were talking about, there's that too, that you somehow relate to this character, in another era, in this very specific kind of circumstance. It's so watchable. I really came away with a super admiration for Marie Osmond that I did not know I had.
And Timothy Bottoms is so cute.
Oh, and he's so adorable. And he is always excellent. He's never not good, no matter what they're having him do. Remember, That's Our Bush?
Yes, he was great.
He was great.
And then 9/11 happened, and they had to cut the show short. Yeah.
I know. Anyway, it's a wonderfully cast. I think it's well directed. The writing is a little clunky, but that's okay. I'm not mad at it. I think it's fun. It is nothing if not wholesome. I saw somewhere, I remember at the time when she said it, but somewhere along the lines, Marie Osmond said that she's going to leave all of her money to charity, and that she wanted her children to make their own money.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, this brought to mind because of the storyline of this movie, of it all, like them trying to put these two children together so that families can have an even bigger fortune together. And at the time when I heard that, I was like, well, that's not fair, because your family is the one who, you make money because your family, And, look, your brothers are producing this, your brothers are the executive producing team of this vehicle. But now I sort of think maybe what she meant, or maybe what she means, is they should make their own money without having to worry about the rest of the family.
They have their own lives.
And have their own lives.
Because show business is tough. It is a brutal business, especially to women. And she was just a kid with this top 10 TV show in 70s LA, which must have been yikes.
Yeah. The seediest of LAs.
Yeah.
I really felt for her. And all the Osmonds, but particularly for her, I guess, because she's the only girl, and because she was so very, very young. She's making this crushing schedule television show when she's supposed to be in high school, picking out a prom dress, and taking a break from that to make a movie. Who does that? People don't do that anymore. And a recording career on top of that. Also recording records and promoting records. How?
Well, they did have like a period where the popularity sort of dipped, and they just did other things, which I think they all kind of just need the rest. Like, I just need to be a person for a while.
How would you not? Yeah. and being a mom, and I don't know how she does it. I don't know how she does it. And but I think she doesn't get enough credit, I guess is what I'm saying. I think she deserves a lot of credit. This is good, and it's a good performance, and she's really holding her own with James Woods and Timothy Bottoms and all these other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. For a whole picture. So, book or movie?
See, that's tough because I really do like this story, and it is so well written, and I love the tropes that we were talking about, the irony and all that. But I do love this movie. But I'll probably read the story again, or I'll definitely see other versions of it. It'll be a tie for me. But I'm glad it's available. And I was shocked how many friends of mine, like, oh my God, I love this movie. I know exactly what this movie is. So many of my friends were like, wow, it's got fans. Well, but you know what? Like you said, there was a time like this is all we had for entertainment.
Everybody watched this when it was on.
Yes. It was Marie.
You watched all the holiday with Marie. Are you kidding me? In her first dramatic role, we're all here for it.
Well, I'm here.
America's here for it. Yeah, I agree. I same. And I really enjoyed learning about O. Henry.
Yes, yes, that was
fascinating.
No idea. That was. I've really enjoyed. There's a lot of people that are O. Henry obvious experts. We're sorry if you are, and we were annoying because we didn't know our stuff. This is, we take a very high level look at things. We have to become mini experts every week. So that's what it was. So, but I loved learning about him. I love this time in New York. I just think it's such an interesting story.
It is a really fascinating era in New York history and American history. It was post-Civil War, Industrial Revolution, lots of labor things happening, lots of immigrants, communities coming in, and restoration, all kinds of stuff happening. I like that they brought in. I think they did a good job, like bringing in the immigrant storyline. Like they didn't have to do that. That's not in the original story at all. I think they did it really well. So we're going to do something a little unorthodox for New Year's Eve, because we as we said at the top of the show, if you're new, we've expanded what we mean by book to mean any literary source. And we have in the past done films that have been adapted from a song. We just did one recently, Christmas on the Square. We did Jolene. We did Happy Valley PTA. Now, we're going to do one that's a little bit, it's an adaptation, but it's words and music. It's a dramatization of symphonic music, but it is also an adaptation of the lyrics of the music of Gershwin.
We're going to be talking about An American in Paris. Very excited. I have not seen this in a while. It's gorgeous. Yep. It's streaming everywhere. It's the perfect thing to take in for the end of the year. Just listen to some Gershwin music and then watch the movie. And we will be talking about that.
Yeah, the movie was adapted from what's called the symphonic poem by Ira Gershwin. But then it is filled with scenes that have been adapted from songs with lyrics by George Gershwin. So we're going to be talking about the Gershwins.
Yay!
I know. It's going to be fun.
So that's the next episode, everybody. In the meantime, please send us your suggestions, all those places I mentioned before, including our email. The email is bookversusmoviepodcast, spelled it out, at gmail.com. Please join our Substack. And Margo, where can they find you?
You can find me online at coloniabook.com, and all my social media callouts are at She's Nacho Mama. And where can they find you?
You could find me at Brooklyn Fit Chick. That's my site. That's where I am on Twitter and Threads and Instagram. I'm at Brooklyn Margo for my TikTok, and I put some clips there from the movie this week. All right, everybody, have a great holiday weekend. It's Christmas Eve, Christmas. We'll be back in the new year. Oh, my.
Maybe. Might be. Or close to.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. We'll talk to you then. Thank you so much for listening to the Book versus Movie podcast. We're a part of the Frolic Podcast Network. You could find more podcasts you will love at frolic.media/podcasts. You could find us on Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, and Instagram at Book versus a Movie. Just spelled it all out. We have a Patreon page. Type in there Book vs Movie Podcast. where you can find 8 years worth of shows. You can follow Margot D on social media at Brooklyn Margot and also Brooklyn Fit Chick. You can find Margot P at She's Nacho Mama. Thank you again for listening, and please be sure to send along your suggestions for the show. Remember, the book needs to be easy to get your hands on, and the movie has to be streaming on a major platform. We will be back soon with a new episode.